Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You'll see my background is a little bit different. Those of you on YouTube, I am now in the United States of America. We have left Portugal. Those of you who are under a rock or don't follow me on social media, we left lovely Portugal and we're now in America. So my first guest back is none other than Mr. Richard Grannon, because you posted something I thought was very cool. So stand by. I'm going to play it really quickly and then I want to dig in. Is that cool?
Yes, sir.
Narcissists must have existed throughout all of human history. It can't just be something that's developed in the last 100 years or so. But if we weren't using psychology before 1890, or whenever Nietzsche declared himself the greatest psychologist to have ever lived, I don't know, probably 1885, something like that. Before that time, we didn't have this way of viewing human behavior, so we would use myth. Vampires interest me. Narcissistic psychopaths invert reality. They sleep by day and they wake by night. They're in a coffin. That's the place of the dead. So they literally dwell where the dead should dwell. And it's underground and in the dark. Also, the vampire doesn't age. They're literally trapped in time. They require your consent in order to enter into your house. And they survive by drinking other people's blood. And I think this is the core fantasy of the narcissist, where they're outside of temporality, they're outside of mortality. They've become something more than human.
Do you think drinking blood is going to engage the YouTube censors?
I don't know what the censorship is now, because I've been listening to some of my favorite podcasts and they're swearing and they're using words that I didn't think you could use, and they're getting tons of views. So I don't know what the rules are anymore. Drinking blood is probably nothing.
Yeah, maybe they might support it. Who knows?
Probably.
Let me steer away from those kinds of things.
If it was adrenochrome, they definitely would.
Yes. Adrenochrome doesn't exist, Richard. It's a right-wing conspiracy. It does not exist.
Correct. Of course.
Okay, so I want to dig into this because I've thought about this. When did you come to this conclusion?
Well, obviously, narcissism is something I've been thinking about from a professional point of view for 12, 13 years now. And it's quite a while ago. It's like 2013, 2014 time. I was in Malaysia still, and the Chinese have a version. So when a Chinese person wants to use a racial slur against a white, they call us guailos.
Right.
Guailos. So I would ask my Chinese friends, what is a guai though? What is a guai? And I'm not anybody who speaks Cantonese. I can't do the tones, so I don't know whether there's 9 different tones. So if you say guai, it could be expensive, it could be kneel, it could be covered. I'm saying it wrong. I know that. So I'd say, what is that? And they showed me like an old film, and there were these they're dead. They're white-skinned and they can't walk, they hop. And I was like, oh, it's like a early Chinese prototype for a vampire myth. So they have their own version of a vampire. It's the Walking Dead, somewhere between a vampire and a zombie, but it hops, which is really frightening. It sounds ridiculous, but when you see it in a movie, it's like it's otherworldly, it's spooky. So I was thinking, well, maybe, we didn't. So I said in that clip, it's 1885 was the beginning of psychology. It's actually the official known date is 1879. Okay, so before people started writing about narcissism, and I think the first paper on narcissism was 1895. How did we think about it? Because it existed. So you have like the picture of Dorian Gray. You have the concept of people who change, who are involved in black magic. Werewolves, vampires. So I was like, oh, maybe the vampire is the prototypical myth. And I used to read all the Anne Rice books when I was growing up. So obviously different myths have different rules. But there's a lot that applies from vampire myths to narcissism. So I wonder if that was an early attempt through myth to understand something that certain human beings would do.
Right. Yeah. So, and my correlations happened in 2017 as I was waking up from the cult, because I was starting to think about what I was learning about narcissism and thinking, wait, they're describing like a vampire. And then I began looking at the myths. I began looking at the monster stories, and I thought to myself, what if those stories are the way they explain these things? Because they didn't have an internal understanding of like the psyche and stuff like that. and then I was like shocked, and actually was thinking to myself, should I do a whole thing about, vampires and monsters? Never quite got there, as you know.
Mm.
But I am interested in this. So there's a few things that interest me. Like there's this sort of parasitic nature of the vampire, that they need to feed off humans, and often they have to feed off innocence, it seems. It's like they seem to feed off goodness. I've never seen a vampire feed off badness, or I could be wrong. They may exist, right?
Usually in the myth, I mean, the latest big vampire movie that everybody was raving about, but I didn't think was very good, is Nosferatu. And when the vampire originally gets hold of her, I think in that story she's literally a virgin, and there is this sort of, even in, so the big one, Dracula by the Irishman Bram Stoker, that's she's a maiden. She's a maiden, and that's who Vlad Dracul becomes obsessed with, is a maiden, a pure, unsullied spirit in some sense. So yes, there is that part of the myth that creates this dichotomous split, ultimate, lifeless, predatory evil, and then life-bound, pure, virginal, libidinous health. And he must drink from her. There's this male, feminine sort of dichotomy to it as well.
Do you think, because the whole thing of like they go for dumb people, I don't think that's true. But do they go for, and I'm talking about the extreme of malignant narcissism in terms of vampires, do they go for innocence? Is that the joy, to go for innocence?
I'm sure if they're a narcissistic psychopath, they would relish destroying somebody's innocence. I don't know if you saw it, Bonnie Blue and Andrew Tate were being interviewed.
I saw a tiny piece of it. Did you watch the whole thing?
I did. I endured.
Wow.
I gritted my teeth and I watched the whole thing. She said that her favorite thing is to take virginity from 18-year-old boys. And she said, it gives me pleasure to take that from them, were her words. It gives me pleasure to take, she says, it gives me great pleasure to take that from them. The glassy-eyed thing said.
I'm sorry to say, it is a thing. It's a thing.
It honestly, it's just, two absolute intellectual powerhouses. They talk about narcissism in that interview, and they absolutely butcher the concept. They're like, everybody's a narcissist. I'm like, you pair of clowns. Stop using words you don't understand. So yes, there is the narcissist psychopath would enjoy sullying innocence and destroying innocence. The pure narcissist, I think it's more of a sense of opportunism. And so if I was a narcissist, I would love to take somebody who's innocent, because that would feed my grandiosity that I could do that. But I do need people to be naive. I do need a degree of naivety, because I'm a con artist. So without my capacity to lie and deceive, I don't really have any power. So the more rigidly naive my target is, the better chance I have of running my particular scam, my con on them.
Don't you wonder about like this whole idea of drinking blood? I keep thinking about like getting narcissistic supply, like not only getting it, but needing it. Because my experience of narcissists, I mean, I think it's full NPD, who need people in order to survive.
Yes.
It is like they need blood. And I'm just wondering, like, who was the first person that came up with that idea, the drinking blood thing? Because it is a perfect metaphor for supply.
Yes. I mean, I suppose we have to realize that certainly in the last 12,000 years, there's no reason to assume that any human being that's been alive in the last 25,000 years is not as intelligent as we are. They wouldn't have had the knowledge, they wouldn't have had the tech, but they would have, probably had just as much, if not more, intuition, emotional IQ, and intelligence. And they probably would observe, there's certain personalities when they walk into the room, they drain everybody, they dominate the conversation, they constantly are signaling their superiority or their vulnerability, depending on their strategy. And they leave everybody feeling drained and slimed. How do you convert that into myth? What is the core essence of a human being? If you spill blood, the human dies. So it's the liquid life force that runs inside of you. So if you drank the blood, it would be, I think it would be a fitting metaphor. I can see how people would get to that when trying to mythologize it as a way of understanding what's happening.
Yeah, I'm also thinking of those stories. I don't know if it comes from Egyptian myth or maybe it's the Hollywoodization of it, but like sucking someone's soul out, sucking, literally breathing their soul into the monster, and they're now soulless. And I find it interesting because that is how it feels. When you get properly screwed over, it feels like they take your soul out.
They're usually like, if you're a bit of a nerd for fantasy and fiction in that sense, there usually unlike me, there usually is some mention of Egypt somewhere. The emphasis on death in, the Egyptologists are going to say, it's only a certain period of Egypt. Okay. Whatever the period is, I don't know. I'm not an Egyptologist. But the one that we're most familiar with, that most gets put into movies, it seems to be very, very death-focused. And very much their sense of religion and spirituality is balanced by what happens in death. And the life that it was a given. You live on. How will you live on in the next life? Then you have the mummies, the preservation of living people. So there is this sense in which, yes, there is life in death. So I think that's why people go back to Egypt, the immortality. There's magic there. And yeah, there is this mythology of drawing life essence from somebody for your usage. And that flows into black magic as well, doesn't it? You have this thing of like, can you steal someone's essence? Can you eat them? There are still people today who do this in your country of origin, in your continent of origin. They'll still eat people, believing I can absorb their intellect or I can absorb their charm if I literally eat their flesh.
God,
and that's
that is so dark. That's so
dark. It's really dark. But even today, it still goes on in some places in Africa, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then the other thing I was thinking about with the vampire thing was the charm, because in sort of vampire lore, they're always charming and seductive initially. Like there's a certain mask that they show to charm the person, and then the fangs come out.
Yes, people will say this is generational prejudice. I really didn't like Nosferatu, and I much preferred who did Dracula with Gary Oldman? Is that it's not Brian De Palma. It's
no, I don't remember.
I'm blanking.
But Nosferatu is a remake of the original Nosferatu, basically.
It's a remake of the original Nosferatu that actually borrows from the 1990s Gary Oldman, Keanu Reeves Dracula movie. It borrows elements of it. And yes, you see an urbane, charming, worldly. He speaks multiple languages. He's psychic in that, and he can actually read people's minds. He can put thoughts into people's minds. He's a master of hypnosis. He's a fascinating, high class. He's nobility. He's nobility from a distant, exotic land in the East. Okay, we're all more familiar with Romania now, but back then, how do you get there? I mean, the Englishman in the story is traveling for bloody weeks. He's got to cross seas. He's got to ride in a carriage. It's far, and it's distant, and it's exotic, and it's strange. And of course, Romanians really do have that accent. I've had Romanian girlfriends, and they really do talk like this.
But were they vampires?
They certainly sucked the essence. No, that's how to edit. Clip that.
Stop that. Don't say that. Sucked the soul essence out of you.
Yes, the soul essence right out of me. They sucked the soul out of me. Yeah, I mean, and the other thing, Romanians have a very robust and have a good sense of humor about this, is you will find people in Romania. So the Transylvanian story, there are people in Romania who are so incredibly pale. You know how you've seen in Portugal, people, some not often, but you can see people who are this color white. They're very, very, very pale. Romania has the same thing, but they're typically blue-eyed, and you can see their veins through the skin.
Really?
Yeah. I've only seen it. It's the only place in the world. Oh, some Albanians, and they're probably sharing similar genetics. So I kind of wondered if all of this together created this fertile ground for this myth around bloodlessness and blood desiring, and the idea that if I drink from you, I become full. I don't want to, if you're my favorite victim, I don't want to kill you. I'll make you one of me. And so there is that element of narcissism where it's like, I'm going to pass the vampirism onto you. You're not one of the victims I eat and dispose, and I'm full. I'm bloated. I'm hungry. I'm starving. I'm wretched. That's narcissistic depletion, narcissistic depression. I find the target. I drink from them, and then I'm in narcissistic elation. I'm plump. The tick is full with blood. So that's the parasitical element to it. But some people are selected for eternal life also. And they, of course, think, what a wonderful, or they might think in some stories, please give this to me. Let me be as you are. You are so beautiful and cultured and noble, and you live forever. Great, let me join you. And then, they realize the horror and the godlessness of the situation.
It sounds like a cult leader, because, I know that Raniere, I realized in the end, was trying to make a bunch of mini hymns.
Yes.
And in another cult that I was in, there was everlasting life promised, like if you could be more like the leader, you could have that. That's so interesting. So back to this charisma thing, because I've been thinking, this is a slight tangent, but you know how bad guys are so well written in movies? And they're written in complex ways, and they're written better than the so-called good guys. And I keep thinking to myself, I think that whoever is writing those bad guys really well probably has some kind of disdain for goodness, because goodness is interesting as well, but I find that they find this quote unquote evil more interesting. And I'm now of the opinion that a lot of, not all, but a lot of those writers actually might have fantasies of being that pathology, and they're writing it, putting it out on screen, and now the public is getting enamored with being like that because they're enamored with being like that. Because as you know, there's a fair amount of pathology in the entertainment industry. Just been wondering.
Yeah, for sure. You immediately made me think of Leonard Nimoy's Spock as a sex symbol. And he was deliberately written to be sexy. And I think he wasn't supposed to just have pointy eyebrows. I think he was supposed to have like a little demon goatee as well. And they wanted to make Spock look like the devil because he was to be, he was designed as a sex symbol to sex the show up and to bring female viewers. How successful that was, I do know women who think that Spock is sexy, that the original Spock, Leonard Nimoy, is sexy, maybe as a potent, cerebral, detached, psychopathic narcissist sort of archetype. But yeah, you're right. There's very few writers who can make good interesting. The only one that springs to mind is Cormac McCarthy, No Country for Old Men, the Josh Brolin character. But he's not saccharine. He's not whiter than white. He's good, but he's obviously a bit of a naughty boy as well, and he's handy, and he has much more depth. Obviously, it's what Josh Brolin is. I know he's a friend of yours. It's what he brought to the character as well. But he brought some depth to it. But other than that, yeah, typically, who's more interesting? You watch the Mission Impossible movies, and God bless Tom Cruise for what he's done with that series, trying to entertain people. But Ethan Hunt is usually less interesting than whoever the bad guy is he's faced off against. Right.
And I keep wondering why, because I think that people that have goodness or struggle with goodness, or ride that line where they could flip over to just giving into every single impulse, I think that's interesting. You know, somebody who's
It,
horrified that they did give in to the impulse,
yes,
you know?
yes, it is. It is. But you're right. There's a kind of deification of badness. I wonder if it's as well people who are not very well shadow integrated. So they've disavowed, so the writers, and as you say, maybe they've disavowed parts of themselves, and then that's their way of reclaiming them, is through
Yeah.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, I think that's very possible. And I do think, yeah, I think that, and I think it's their fantasy as well,
mm,
is to be that. I mean, listen, I watched war movies, and I've watched movies where there's revenge,
mm,
and I can't wait for the person to get revenge against the cartel or whoever that did all the awful things.
sure.
You know, I find myself, giving into that, and that's my way of experiencing revenge without actually doing it. But there is something about the fantasizing. Listen, I mean, I've been in rooms with people in Hollywood. I mean, there's some pretty fucked up, dark people, you
Hmm.
know? And I think what people don't realize is that they just think it's entertainment, but it's literally these people getting off on creating films where they can live out their fantasy. I mean, there's a reason that, I won't name them, but certain directors cast very beautiful women who then get, like, ravaged and destroyed in their films, because they're kind
Yes,
of living out certain, they're
I
living
know
out
who
certain fantasies.
I know who you're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah.
you know who I'm talking about. Um, and then the other thing I keep thinking about, and maybe there's a biological reason, but this fascination with this kind of charming, cold, dead individual. Like,
So sorry, I started to laugh there. I was just
yeah,
thinking, in that particular director's case, I'm like, how many times are we going to let you butcher a woman slowly on camera before somebody says, "Dude, you need to go to therapy. You're very angry with
yeah,
your mother still."
yeah, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. And no, and then I see, I mean, I don't remember, which particular film it was. I mean, there's so many using a saw or a chainsaw or whatever, but like,
Right.
it's always the pretty hot girl who's going to get a chainsaw driven into her torso and cut in half or whatever. I mean,
The the
what is
cra-
going on?
the crazy thing about that is, like, if I wanted if I wanted to put that on film, I would be embarrassed. I would be like, "Oh, this is what I've written." If I showed that to you, I'd expect you to be like, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" But there's no question of it. People just do it again and again and again. And I'm not a prude. I'm not squeamish. If it suits the plot, it's necessary to the narrative, or it's historically accurate, show violence, and yeah, show violence against, even if it's against women. But I'm like, how has Hollywood gotten away with this obsession with slaughtering women for decades, and nobody's gone, guys, like, what what's your
Yeah,
what's your problem? Give it a
yeah.
rest.
And it bothers me a lot. It bothers me now a lot more than I think it used to when I was, shooting a bunch of junk in Hollywood. But it
Yeah.
bothers me because I see what it is. I see it's somebody's fantasy
Yeah, it really is.
that they're
It's
living
it's
out.
really That's the way I see it. Is, I'm like, this is, and maybe people in the comments will be like, it's entertainment. Don't take it so seriously. It's not. That person can't or won't do it in real life, so they put it on film, and it means something to them that if you knew what it meant to them, you wouldn't be happy about it. It's
Right.
not. It's not healthy. It's not healthy.
Right.
Not
And
always. Not always. I can't think off the top of my head where I've seen violence, protracted violence against a woman in a movie, where it hasn't had that impact on me. Where I'm like, okay, boys, what is this? And like, there's a whole genre. It's chasing pretty women around, pretty young women, sometimes in bikinis, and then slaughtering them. And
very often. Or
we all
underwear.
just go,
Usually
or
underwear.
underwear. Yeah, and we're like, yeah, that's a horror film. It's normal. And I'm like, what? But why is it not? Like, why is that normal?
That's the question.
How psychopathic are we as a culture where we just go, yeah, that's
Why?
entertainment. Yeah.
And then there's this horrible sort of confluence of things of where it seems that some women are attracted to these kinds of, like, the vampire kind.
Mm.
And want to see. I mean, I read a statistic somewhere that there are certain women that want to see that. I'm like, why? That's dangerous. That's deadly that's going to get you killed if you do that kind of thing. I'm speaking more metaphorically and literally. And I'm just really interested in what is this fascination. And by the way, vampires are always well-dressed. They're always well-dressed.
Except in Nosferatu.
Right. Yeah.
So
in Nosferatu, is he ugly like in the original?
Yeah, it's really weird. She's got this fetish for a guy he's rotting. He's literally rotting. And then I was on TikTok because, God forgive me, I go on TikTok. And I could see other women were, why? Why would you rot your brain like that? And other young women were saying, no, it's hot. He's a daddy. He's a vampire daddy. And I'm like, he has maggots coming out of his skull. Are you mental?
Vampire daddy.
He's a vampire daddy.
What? That's so interesting.
I've been with 2 women in my life who I found out afterwards had become pen pals with, both of them were American. The 2 American women I've been with had become pen pals with prisoners, using a dating service that puts women in contact with men who are in the American penal. One of them, she was American, but she lived in the UK. One with a guy who'd killed someone in the UK, and one with a guy who'd killed somebody in America. And I was saying to them, like, when I found out, I was like, why? What's the fascination? And they're like, it's hot. And I'm like, okay, and why have you chosen me? Like, what do you see? What do you then see in me? And I think there's that, it's this strange attraction to perceived potentiality for violence. I've even heard women, and I've heard gay men say it out loud, I don't want to be with a man who couldn't potentially kill me. It doesn't sexually arouse me. If he couldn't potentially kill me, I don't want to be with him.
Okay, so you know what? Here's what I want to say to my audience. By the way, we are not talking about all women. We're not talking about all women.
No.
But I am interested in my female audience weighing in on this because, and I don't really want the statistic about evolutionary biology and stuff like that, but I'd like to know, for those of you that feel you want to, what is it about this, if it's true at all? Like, what is it about this that is exciting or feels weirdly safe? Because I understand, for instance, that, back in the, thousands of years ago, millions of years ago, whatever, that the most dangerous man could take care of everybody. I get all of that. But I'm just now interested in, is there some feeling that feels good with these vampire-like characters? So any of my female listeners, watchers, if you would like to weigh in, especially those that have anonymous accounts, and there are many who want to weigh in, I'm really curious to hear like how it feels, not just literature, not just the so-called science, because I'm fucking mystified.
If I run the empathy drill in my own head and simulate being a woman, because I have female friends who are embarrassed about this, and I'll say it to them, I'll be like, no, if I was a woman, I'd be the same way. There's a female friend, she happens to be from Serbia, and she fell for the classic Yugoslavian local gangster, steroids, tattoos, drives a white BMW or whatever. And she was like, I'm so embarrassed. It's so cheesy. And I was like, show me him. No, I can't. I got. So show me him. She eventually shows me. And I was like, okay, you think it's embarrassing, but I think if I was a woman, I would also find this attractive. I would also think, look, we operate as humans through what hacks our biology is signals. What is a signal of strength? What is a signal of sexual fertility? We're civilized, so and we're high IQ mammals. Obviously, we're the highest IQ mammal we know of. We're high IQ primates. So our symbols are strange, and sometimes they're detached from anything that could be said to be meaningful. So, I don't know, there would have been tribal you've seen Mel Gibson's Apocalypto. Some of the dudes, they have piercings through the lip. They're brandished on their arms. If you were in a culture where that meant I've killed a leopard, or this means I've been through my initiation, the brain is going to go, that's a real man. And what culturally and historically has made a real man, dividing it from violence and death is very hard to do. And I'm not saying it. I'm not promoting that. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying let's all just use our empathy, think like anthropologists. What are the roots of this? What are the signals we receive that make us think that's sexy, that's hot? If you run the simulation in your own head, I mean, and think of being a woman, yeah, it's like the bad boy or the bad guy in the movie. He's more. I don't know how to put it into words. It's interesting.
I get if I have, if I'm a woman and I have, one shot a month, I've got those few eggs. On a very biological level, I need them to survive. So you get that the biggest, baddest, meanest man is going to be the one to have them survive, and he's going to protect me. What I find so interesting, though, and I can't quite feel, because I don't think I have the nervous system to feel this properly, is like the most dangerous one is not only dangerous to others, but potentially dangerous to me as well. And there's this weird fine line of safety, excitement, and fear as well.
Yes.
Because if I cross him, I'm dead.
So you're healthy. I'm not healthy. So the example I was giving with me using empathy is Richard as a woman. It's not all women. I know I'm damaged because I choose dangerous women. So because I'm already damaged, if I go into a woman's body, I'm going to choose dangerous men who are not good partners. They're only really good for the procreation phase of the partnership. They're only really good for sex. The sex is good. The women I've chosen historically, are they going to stick around and be good, kind, careful, nurturing mothers? No. So similarly, the men that I would choose from that damaged template, damaged, maybe that's the wrong way to say it. I think I'm coming from a template that is primeval. It's primitive. And this is in line with my theory that psychopathy is it's a reduction back to primitive states. So I think I'm reduced back, which is why I stay in therapy and don't date or don't get into relationships, because I'm reduced back to a primitive state. So if there's a girl I saw in the gym today, and my mate was like, "Oh, she's perfect. I bet you like her." And I'm like, "Yeah, I really do." But she's sending out heavy sexual signals to everyone with there's no sort of quality control there. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's great." And then my brain goes, "Yeah, and that's why you stay in therapy, you moron."
By the way, I love that you call me healthy. I'm like, really? Healthy, huh?
Your response sounds healthy because our friend Ed Dutton, Professor Ed Dutton, would be able to explain this better. It's called fast life mating strategies and slow life mating strategies. So it sounds like you're from a slow life mating strategy. So you're thinking long term, planning for the future, safety. More, and this he's taught me this. I don't want to take credit for his work. More psychopathic people tends to be, or there is a correlation between short life history strategies and psychopathy, because I was raised in an environment where maybe there's no tomorrow. Not literally, but that's what my central nervous system understood because it was so chaotic. And so I'm not thinking about 15 years in the future, because my central nervous system is like, you could be dead next week. So it's much more about now, which is why the impulse control is lower with people who are fast life history strategist and more psychopathic.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Wow. Give me stuff to think about. Hey, quick interlude. If you're liking these conversations and want to help me keep expressing what is on my mind, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and maybe even follow the podcast wherever you listen. And if you want to go a step further in supporting the show and getting access to some behind-the-scenes rants, you can join me over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Mark Vicente. It really does make a difference. All right, back to the episode.
You know that there's a whole blooming field of literature for women that is describing relationships with werewolves. Do you know this?
No.
Erotic fiction is booming right now, and the memes online are kind of resentful. They're salty. They're like, "Oh, why do women like stories about making love with a 7-foot werewolf monster. And I think it's just it's along the same conversation. It's a conversation we can have gently. It's a conversation we can be empathic about and not shame people for. Because what good's that going to do? There are people who are men and women who are attracted to dangerous partners. Usually, when vampires are male, so it's either going to be gay men or women who find that archetype really sexy, really, really hot.
So interesting. I think I'm under a rock. Listen, I'm happily married, so maybe that's why I don't know about some of the shit, maybe. I want to go back to the vampire thing.
Sure.
The other thing that's interesting, the perfect correlation is the lack of empathy thing. Vampires, like, there's zero empathy. Everything is about what they want. They're calculating, which I think matches as well, because it matches the sort of empathy deficit in people with, NPD and beyond. That is interesting. And then also the other thing I was thinking about is this empty core thing. Because in the end, these monsters, unless they're written to have like some wounded inner child that's in there that's waiting to come out, blah blah blah. There is an emptiness to them, which is what the vampire has as well. I get the feeling often with the vampires, they're nothing without their prey. Like, they need their prey. They will get weak if they don't have it, because they have nothing inside. So that, I think, is interesting as well.
It's very interesting. Yes, the vampire will turn into a sort of mummified husk without that supply. And further, they don't survive daylight, which I think is really interesting from the point of view of therapy. If you think about therapy being about bringing things from the unconscious to conscious, from darkness to light, the vampire doesn't survive the exposure to light. So bringing things to being vulnerable, being authentic, bringing it to light, integrating the shadow kills them. It destroys them. And maybe that's a metaphor for the vampiric part of a human being. Doesn't mean that human is going to die, but maybe the narcissistic part of them dies when brought to light, before the years of psychology, it would have been being brought back to the grace of God, being brought back to the light of the Lord, would have, especially in the West. And actually in the East, in Islam, it would be the same thing. Indeed, the word for infidel in Islam, kafir, the etymological Arabic root is to bury in the ground. So a disbeliever, a defier of God, is someone who buries the truth in the ground. The vampire buries themselves in the ground. In order to travel in Dracula, Gary Oldman needs to be buried in Transylvanian earth, to be held in the earth, and he crosses the ocean held in the earth of Transylvania inside of a box.
That's interesting. Also, did you ever see the vampire movie Near Dark? Is it Near Dark or After Dark?
I've seen them all. So who's in it?
Yeah. Oh, I don't remember now, but I do remember they're in a van and there's these holes and the sunlight's coming in and burning them.
They're like a motorcycle crew of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was an amazing movie. The thing that's interesting that I never thought of before until this conversation is that the sunlight is, like you say, vulnerability. It's like maybe it's truth. Because I've noticed with people that are noticeably narcissistic, there's a few people that I would try to work with in the past to try to get them to feel what they're feeling. And one person at one point said, I said, well, what's that feeling? And they said something about a well, an empty well. And I said, well, go into the well. What's in there? And they had such a bad reaction to going into that well. And they said, I can't. Yeah. It's the most awful thing. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because it makes me think now that the sunlight, it burns them. That vulnerability burns them. I'd never seen that correlation before between the sun and that.
Yeah, so this is getting to be a very Jungian archetypal conversation. So it would be, and Jung obviously used tarot cards, but if people are interested in tarot cards, there's a difference between what it means when the moon, your wife reads tarot cards, right? Bonnie reads tarot cards.
Did so when not so much, but she did, yeah.
Not so much, she did, but she'll be able to tell you after the conversation.
Yeah.
If you're in a reading with a client and the moon shows up, it has a very, very different aspect to when the sun shows up in the reading, and one is full of deception, misunderstanding, miscommunication, signals, like I mentioned signals before, signals coming through, but they're fake signals. And the other one is growth and hope and life. So yeah, that element of the sun, of consciousness, of awareness, all of this stuff with vampirism and narcissism only can proliferate in the dark, for us as victims and targets, as well as for them as perpetrators. We are in the same soil, hidden. We've disavowed the shadow, to keep it Jungian. We've disavowed our own shadow. And this interplay between the vampire and the vampire's victim, it elucidates that shadow play. The game that we're playing is all done within the shadows, which I think is the name of that comedy series about vampires. It's called Within the Shadows, or What We Do in the Shadows.
Something like that. Yeah. You know, I'm just thinking, I want to get your thought on this. This is a what if. Do you think that if we all of us, 9 point whatever billion people, integrated our shadows, do you think the world would change?
Oh God, yeah, it would. If fucking hell, if a third of people half integrated their shadows, the world would look completely different. Just 1/3 of the humans on Earth half integrated their shadows, the world would change overnight. It would be totally different. It doesn't require.
Okay, so that's
everybody.
that's my feeling. But what are the real life material mechanics of that? Like, why would it change the world? Because I feel it would.
Yeah, because so if you think about the mass of humanity and the weight of karma, cause and effect, the weight of action of the mass of humanity, it's huge now. We've never, in recorded history, we've never had 8 billion, 9 billion people on the planet. If all 9 billion people are operating 99% unconsciously, which is generous, they're coming from shadow. So most human beings are totally shadow possessed. It's nothing to do with education. It's nothing to do with IQ. It's nothing to do with culture. Most people are the walking dead. They are zombies. They're just impulse. There's no reasoning. There's which Greek philosopher said the unexamined life is not worth living? Is it Plato or Aristotle? Or they don't examine their lives. They don't examine their lives. They don't think. They're not sat there going, what is good? What is evil? Why do we call good good? Why do we call it? They don't give a shit about that. They're just not interested.
That I get, but I'm thinking about how, because there are people that have ill intent. Let's call them evil. Would people integrating their shadows more change the nature of that, or change the ability of those people to move unfettered in the world, which they currently are able to do? That's what I keep wondering about.
No, 100% it would. 100% it would. A rising tide raises all ships. People would do less evil. So in the hypothetical that I gave in the sci-fi fantasy that we're creating here, 1/3 of the human population integrates their shadow by 50%, which is a huge gain for humanity. Less evil would be done. Most evil is coming from unconsciousness, quite frankly. It's not particularly intentful, because most people don't do anything with intent. Most people can't even fucking walk down the street with intent. So it would become more intentful. And then, yes, when people did do evil, we as a species would be more able to call it out or not be tricked by it, because a lot of it is about trickery.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. Because as long as I'm denying my shadow, I also kind of have to be denying other people's bad shit that they're doing too, because if I acknowledge that they're doing bad shit, it's going to reflect on me. So
Correct.
I let them get away with it a lot more, because I don't want to think about the world being like that until I dig in and go, well, I've got parts of me like that.
There's no way, in my humble opinion, you ever would have escaped a cult and all cults forevermore without confronting your shadow. Now, we've never had an in-depth conversation about your therapeutic process, But somewhere along the way, either you or a good therapist pulled something up and went, you haven't looked at this yet, have you? And you've gone, ugh, shit.
That's
And then looked at it.
interesting. That's interesting. I actually don't think it came through therapy. And I think it's because most of the therapists were just trying to help orient me to that is bad. And then I finally was, yeah, that's fucking horrible. And they go, yeah, it's evil. And I go, yes, it's evil. So I don't think we got there. I think what happened, I think I mentioned to you once at one point during my so-called war with the cult, when a few of us were fighting against them and they were doing all kinds of shady shit. I remember having weird fantasies about going back to, to Clifton Park, where I knew he still was, going to grab my very sharp samurai sword out of the storage unit and walking the streets.
Yeah.
And I remember that feeling. And at first I was horrified that I would actually think that. And I thought, I've thought shit like that my whole life. Something about that moment and recognizing, it was an interesting thing because I also recognized I am capable of that, but I'm not going to do it.
Sure.
And that's the difference, perhaps, is that the person I was fighting, although they would do it very covertly, was capable of doing those things, but they would just do it by proxy through other people.
Yes. Yeah. There probably, if you think back, there will have been multiple instances where you've had to look at the darkness within yourself where previously you couldn't or wouldn't, and look at it without judgment and look at it and go, oh yeah, I sometimes want to kill people. Well, that's weird. I'm sometimes really envious. I'm sometimes just really angry and cranky and fucking angry with the world. Wow. Oh, okay. I'm a person. There's a humility and an integration, I think that comes with that. And that's the shadow work. It's what have I disavowed about myself? What did I not want to look at? The laziness, the weakness, the childishness, the impulsivity, the envy, the greed, the sloth, the lustfulness. Okay, this is me. This is also me. This is all part of me. I'm not perfect. I don't need to be perfect, and that's okay. That's I don't want to say too much here, but I do actually remember on the long walks we took, some of the conversations that we had, and I could hear that process. Like, oh, this is me? Oh, fuck, I guess it is. Oh, well, okay. Okay.
And it's interesting because I know some of my audience are going to be like, wait, so you're saying, with this integrating shadow, you're making it okay. And that's not what we're saying. But what I have found for myself is as I've acknowledged certain things about myself, it hasn't taken away my ability to look in the world and say that is bad. Because again, I want to say there's a difference between the things that rattle around in my brain, and what I'm going to do.
I think this is interesting. I think it's a key point that trips a lot of people up. So within the safe yin space of like therapy, we have moral relativism. We when we're healing, when we're seeking to process, we don't do moral judgment. Outside in the yang of the world, we have judgment. We have the capacity to say this is good, this is bad. And that's how we apply discipline to ourselves. There's things I want to do. There's the number of a girl in the gym today that I wanted to get. I didn't get it. I didn't approach her because you have that discipline. You say that I know that's not good for me. I know how that story goes. I know it to the letter. I know it to the day exactly how that relationship would play out, and where it would break down, and what she would say and what I would say and what she's going to feel, what I'm going to feel. No, I'm not going to do that. So there's moral relativism or a lack of persecution, judgment within the space of therapy. But when we go to the real world, we must have a morality. We must have boundaries out there.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking, I'm not going to mention names again, but I there's a tendency I see in the world right now where the news feeds the world with, this particular political leader is bad. And then everyone's like, oh my God, they're awful. And people have become quite deranged. And I noticed that people have become quite deranged about certain public figures. seem to be in full-scale denial of their own darkness. And the more they're in denial of their own darkness, the more of a scary external monster person they find in the world to hate in an unhinged way. And I say that because what I'm finding for myself is that the more I understand myself, the less horrified I am about what I see in the world. Like, I think things are bad, but I don't have the same horror anymore or the same surprise. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So in transactional analysis, they would say, my therapist would say, you're reaching a point where you're saying, I'm okay, you're okay. Instead of being like, I'm not okay, you're okay, I'm not okay, you're not okay. So a lot of the political dialogue is, I'm okay, you're not okay. You, your party, your leader, your people. That's splitting. It's an infantile defense against the trauma of the complexity and the nuance of life. There is a game that's played in politics. There's a game that's played in the field of narcissism and narcissistic abuse, to be morally outraged by the ill actions of another person. And if you notice, when you snort a line of righteous indignation, you feel
I like that.
the ego strengthens. You go, that I can't believe she said, and I can't believe he did. And it's the same somatic state when you condemn a political leader or a political figure, and you condemn your ex-boyfriend or your ex-girlfriend. Not to say you can't judge evil as evil, for sure, but where are you? Where are you in this? Where are you in this cycle? Are you enjoying this? What's the payoff? Are you getting a payoff? I'm not getting a payoff. They're disgusting. Listen to yourself. Listen to your tone of voice. You were tired and lazy before, but now we're talking about this guy. I've got energy in my the rage is giving you energy. It's a libidinous force, and as you just said, it's coming from shadow disavowal, not shadow integration. You're like, I would never do that. I would never do this thing, that thing, this indulgence, that indulgence. Well, you haven't actually had the power to do that. So, excuse me, princess or little prince, you don't know what you would or wouldn't do until you've been given the power to do it. Settle down. Settle down. You can think and fantasize. I would never. Wait till you get there. Let's see.
Right.
Let's see.
Right. So just to go back to the vampire thing, I keep thinking about, the people in the field of, exposing narcissism. I think it's interesting to look at. So we think that these things are all bad, but then we as a culture also fantasize about these dark figures, these enigmatic, charming, manipulating people with no empathy, with an empty core, that feed on us and drink our blood. And we somehow think that's kind of cool. We might not say it publicly, but our nervous systems get kind of activated by that. I just think it's such an interesting disparity.
And that's what creates a lot of the tension, saltiness, and grumpiness that you observe, is because what that person's engaged in is approach avoidance. So they're like, I hate that. I would never be attracted to that. God damn. And they clearly are. But that, if they're non-integrated, they can't be like, oh, I'm a silly human, and, my perceptions are blurred just because a girl has a nice body. Duh.
Yeah.
Am I going to condemn myself? I'll just have a sense of humor about it and be like, you're being an idiot. Your brain's not.
Yeah.
The blood is flowing to the wrong brain right now. Use your fucking brain. If you're not doing that and you're disavowing it, what you're doing is you're engaging in a sort of a persecutory stance. So you're persecuting the object of your desire. You're saying, I hate them. Well, hang on. You're fetishizing them. You're imbuing them with libidinous energy. I would never. Oh, now you've just made them a sexy, sinful taboo. You've given them even more power. We've got to get past the splitting. We've got to integrate. Because if we don't, these cycles that we're observing in the world are going to continue.
Yeah, and it gets me thinking about, in some of these churches where there's a lot of sexual abuse that happens in these churches because things are forbidden.
Yes.
And you have priests that are raised in the priesthood, things are forbidden, but now they're fixated on something that they want to act out. And now they're going to go act out their 14 or 15-year-old with a 14 or 15-year-old.
Yes.
Because it's forbidden.
There's no faster way to hypersexualize a human culture than by suppressing sexual desire and not talking about sex. And I would claim that despite all of the pornography and the pretend openness we have around sexuality, we're still deeply squeamish about our sexuality. We're very adolescent in our approach to our sexuality.
Yes. Is this maybe why there's this fascination with these monsters? Because we've suppressed all these things and this is the only safe way?
Yes.
Maybe that's what it is.
It's so monsters don't exist. Vampires don't exist. Werewolves don't exist. It's pure fantasy. So where's my libidinous energy supposed to go? I'm not allowed to find this attractive because my culture says I'm not allowed to find that attractive. I mustn't think about that. I mustn't think about this. That's the internal policeman. The superego is going, no, 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 no. Where's the energy going to go? It's the more stress, we know this, the more stress you apply to people, the more sexual paraphilias they develop. But sexual paraphilias and stress have an absolutely positive relationship. So the more you repress people, the more they will fetishize sex, and the more emphasis there will be on sex. So weirdly, as people are having less sex, they're becoming more obsessed with it. The culture becomes more sexualized in the fantasy world and less sexually active in the real world, which all the data indicates is what we have in the Anglosphere today, in the modern Western world today.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So the more shit we get out of our shadow, the less attracted we'll be to these fictional characters.
Yes, I mean, and you've got to remember as well, this won't make me popular within the narcissistic abuse community, but okay, so me as a typical target, I'm a target for narcissistic abuse, I'm a narcissist magnet. It's not just their projection of who they are that beguiles me, and I'm like, oh, they lied, they confused me with the illusion. I'm doing it to them. It's co-idealization. I'm doing it to them. I'm projecting my disavowed fantasy, which in psychoanalytic terms, yes, it could be sexual, but it can just be a dominant narrative by which you live your life. I'm projecting it onto them. It's a two-way street. They're tricking me, plus I'm tricking myself. That's the thing that nobody really wants to talk about because it's very challenging. It's very, no, I'm a victim. I'm a victim.
I'm perfect. Yeah. Is co-idealization something that's in the psychological literature? I know you and I have spoken about it a lot, and various other people. Is it in the literature as well?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it is. Okay,
but it's so as you know, and most of the people following you who have switched on will know, there's this big gap between the clinical and academic literature about narcissistic abuse and the online communities, where even people with PhDs, even people who are doctors of psychology, are in the online echo chamber and they're repeating things that actually don't really have any basis in any serious clinical or academic writing. But yeah, co-idealization is known, but it's not popular in the online narcissism spaces because the online narcissism spaces are on social media typically, and social media is designed to please and to validate and to create echo chambers of validation, and this would have the opposite effect. If you want to lose subscribers and get lots of thumbs down, tell people that they're also projecting their fantasy onto the narcissist. That's a great way of really upsetting your follower base.
I've seen it happen. One quick thing before we close. Your course, have you finished recording it?
I have. It's done. It will be an ongoing project. I'm going to add a module every month for the next year. So it'll be released. It's August 2025, right the way through to August 2026. As I interact with people in the community, it's going to be my last course on narcissism, with the intention that whoever does the course, it's the last course they will ever need on narcissism. And it's thorough. It's everything we're talking about here integration, shadow integration, seeing where your payoff is inside of the relationship. It's a very challenging course, and it leaves no stone left
Does it have a
unturned.
name yet?
The name, so I've been working with Max on this, and we wanted like a really, really simple name. So I think it is the complete narcissistic abuse deprogramming course. So it has the word complete, narcissist, and deprogramming. There is cult psychology in there. You're referenced multiple times throughout the course as a narcissistic psychopathic cult leader.
Fantastic. It's what I've always wanted to be.
There'll be people in the comments going, I knew it, and Richard Grannon just admitted it, so it's fact.
And Richard Grannon is even worse than him.
He's even worse. He's even worse.
Do you know how many people are trying to save me from you?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. I think if you're looking for examples of shadow projection, you'll see it in the comment section.
Yes.
I have psychological problems, but I think the projection onto me as a narcissist is because I'm confident and I have a degree of charisma. So narcissists are confident and have charisma. That doesn't mean everybody who's confident and has charisma is a narcissist.
Maybe they need to learn how to do Venn diagrams and figure
Venn
some of this shit
diagram.
out. You know?
It's called a categorization error. All water is wet. Not all wet things are water. We need to learn. Anyway, that's a subject for another day.
And Richard, the way they find your course is richardgrannon.com?
It is. Or if they go over to my YouTube, all of the YouTube videos, I stopped doing YouTube videos for a couple of months. All of the YouTube videos from now on will be from this. It's not a new model. It's a different model. It's going to be from this different model. Yeah.
All right. I will put the links for all of that in the show notes below.
Thank you.
And always, what an interesting conversation. We started somewhere. We went way off to some really interesting stuff. And then sort of edged our way back in. So thank you as always for your brilliance and your mind.
Thank you for having me on, mate. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. And to my audience, as always, please, for the love of all that is holy, stay curious.